See if I'm working. Okay. Before I get started, this will not be the kind of traditional keynote address. I do have some slides, but before I get started, I first of all want to up front thank you all for being here. Obviously, your time is valuable. The support over the years of the law enforcement community for Special Olympics, watching that video is exceptional. And the fact of the matter is, you're part of a worldwide movement that has done exceptional things for people who, without your support, would not have opportunities that have been presented to them since 1968 when Mr. Shriver founded Special Olympics. So, in particular, I really want to thank John for his leadership. I started, as Doug indicated, I am new. I started on January 14th, which was 2 weeks before the polar bear plunge. So certainly, you know, right into the frying pan. John and Danielle and Chief Spalding and Doug Holland and Greg Shipley and I met actually on the second day on the job and had a really, I think, heartfelt, respectful conversation about what the law enforcement torch run community does for Special Olympics and how we can, as Doug alluded to, take it to the next level. So I want to share with you my excitement and enthusiasm for working with such a dedicated group of people who have not only an impact every day in the communities where you all live, but more specifically and directly on our athletes and the lives that they have. And in particular, I'd like to recognize and thank Colonel Marcus Brown. He is a champion for Special Olympics Maryland. I had the opportunity to meet him at the plunge. And also Chief McMahon, who's not able to be here. Without their leadership and the support and leadership of all the members of both the Maryland Chiefs of Police Association and Maryland Sheriff's Association, again, this activity, this support would not be possible. Before we jump in, I've got on the agenda there, we're gonna try to keep you involved and keep this moving. I certainly don't want to put people to sleep. So over the next 20 minutes, what I'm going to try to do is connect you a little bit more with Special Olympics Maryland. Obviously, some of you have been involved for a long time. Some of you may have been involved this might be your first time. So one of the things we've got, hopefully when you came in, you got a piece of paper that's got on the heading, the Law Enforcement Torch Run quiz. This is kind of play along as you go. This is designed to help keep you connected and make sure we're hitting the right points. Some of the answers have already been provided, so let's give you a layup here in terms of getting started. Question 2, you may have noticed in the video, the question there is, who founded Special Olympics? Does everybody have one of those? Okay, if you don't, you can share them at your table, but Eunice Kennedy Shriver was the founder of Special Olympics. So if you didn't know that, you can fill out question number 2. I think probably you'll be able to figure out question number 1 if you look at the agenda. So you got a head start on 2 questions. This will just help you keep involved. It'll be a little bit of fun as we go out, as we make our way through the course of the day. So I'm going to just come out here in front a little bit and join you guys. Actually, let me just back up. So who is Jim Schmutz? Obviously, Tim Shriver, you saw in the video, he's the chairman and son of Mr. Shriver. You all have no idea who I am, and so I thought it would be helpful to give you a little bit of background on me before we get started. We're going to do a little audience participation to once I get past my brief introduction. I'm going to provide a very short history to just give you context for how far we've come, and then we'll give you a dose of reality so that you really understand how far we still have to go, as Tim alluded to in the video. And that's the understanding of reality. And I'm going to share a couple of stories with you. We'll close out and keep the agenda moving along. So, just to give you some sense, while I just started here on January 14th as the President and CEO, my roots in Special Olympics go back to 1986 when I came out of graduate school with a master's degree in sports administration and joined the staff at Special Olympics in Virginia. My initial experience with Special Olympics Virginia was as what was called a section director. I worked really on the ground in Northern Virginia with the county programs from the city of Alexandria out to Fairfax, Arlington, Prince William, down to Culpeper, and then across to Fredericksburg and back up. And so what I learned then, that was the best introduction to Special Olympics, because the reality that I was faced with there is the program is about the athletes, and it's about the athletes in communities. We do state events here that we organize from the state level, but again, going back to the video, Special Olympics happens every day in so many communities around the country and around the world. And here in Maryland, we have a very robust program, over 6,000 athletes. But without the community-based support that you all provide, and that volunteers provide, and the family members provide, there would be no program. So I learned that lesson, and I'll share this real quickly with you. First meeting I went to with the volunteer committee down in Fredericksburg, they said, Jim, we've been here long before you came, and we will be here long after you leave. As long as you understand that, we'll be just fine. Welcome to Special Olympics Virginia. And so it was a message that I heard loud and clear. The reality is I wasn't there running their program. We depend so much on volunteers like you to really provide the energy and support to run our programs. And as I come into the job now, having been here for 2 months, making my way around the state, going to meetings, trying to meet as many people as I can, it's extremely valuable. So just by way of kind of history, I was in Virginia for three years, went to the District of Columbia, was the director of sports for the District of Columbia Special Olympics. Went to the international office in 1996 as a director of golf, worked there in that capacity for 4 years. We went through a reorganization. I became Vice President of Organizational Development, which enabled me to travel around the world supporting the regional growth that took place. The video mentioned 4 million athletes. Wikipedia mentioned 4 million athletes, which is an accurate figure, so thanks for providing that fact, Chief Wing. The fact of the matter is, Special Olympics has grown dramatically over the years, and I have seen it grow, and yet we continue to face very similar challenges that we need to focus on the community-based level where our athletes live. So I left Special Olympics in 2005 to pursue some professional growth opportunities. When I left, Tim Shriver said to me, Jim, I don't know what you're doing. There's no place where you can go where you're going to be as passionate about what you do as you are about Special Olympics. And I said to him, you're probably right, but I need to expand my skill set so that if I am going to continue in Special Olympics, I can do it in a way that really helps advance the movement. And quite frankly, when you're at the international office, you're far removed from really the program and the core of what happens. So I went away for 7 years. I'm not going to bore you with those details, but I am so happy to be back. And Tim was right. There's nothing out there about which I could be as passionate as I am for Special Olympics. The value that the athletes bring to my life is really energy that provides me the motivation to go to work every day and work with folks like yourself and volunteers across the state. So with that brief introduction, we'll move on. So here's the audience participation. By the time I finish these 4 questions, the idea is to have everybody standing in the audience. So the first question is, so if you can answer yes to these questions, any of these questions progressively, I'd like you to stand up and stay standing, please, right? So do you have a family member or a friend with an intellectual disability? And the friend piece is somebody that you would interact with over the course of a year, not somebody that's just an acquaintance. So if you have a friend, stand up, or a family member. That's really, really good. All right, question 2. Do you know someone with an intellectual disability well enough to refer to them by name and say hello to them in passing? That's really good too. So we'll move through this quickly. Have you ever volunteered at a Special Olympics competition? My guess is if you, great, okay. We still have a few people sitting, so here we go. Are you in some way affiliated with the law enforcement community? All right, that worked. All right, now, here we go. Imagine, and if you'd like, you can close your eyes. I know this is kind of corny, but you can either close your eyes or leave it open. But imagine a world of respect and a world of dignity where we're all standing on the first question, where we've all had the opportunity to interact with an individual with an intellectual disability, a Special Olympics athlete or otherwise, where we can call them our friend, and where they're respected, where they're in schools or in the workplace and they're not bullied. So just keep that image, because this is what you do. All right, you all can sit down now. Thanks for playing along, I appreciate it. Seriously, that is what you do. You bring, and Tim alluded to it, Tim Shriver alluded to it in the video, the human dignity is what you bring to Special Olympics athletes here in the state of Maryland and around the world. I mean, we've got, with John's leadership and others who have been involved at the highest levels of the torch run, they are impacting people around the world. The efforts that John took over to South Korea, and the legacy that they've left there is really the power of the movement. So the mission, I'm not going to go through all these points, but it's helpful for you, and some of the answers to the quiz might be on this slide, so look at your questions. But children and adults, not just, you'll oftentimes hear people refer to the athletes as kids. Well, for the adult athletes, that's a little bit of, they're not kids anymore, they're adults, and they want to be treated as such. So I make that point. All the points in the mission, the key is they all support the concept of transforming lives and building better communities. And the key on the transformation of lives is this, and Greg will talk a little bit about this when he gets up. When I started in this, the concept that drew me to it was, I played sports growing up all my life, even to the point of actually trying to play golf in college and finding out that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. The point is that sports did so much in shaping the person that I am. And so the opportunity to take advantage of an environment where I could use my own experience in a way that would deliver that same type of opportunity to individuals who, without Special Olympics, would otherwise not have the same type of joy and experience of sport, was really appealing to me. But I soon learned that it was a powerful transformative force in my life and really influencing who I am. And so, as much as we talk about the power and value of the mission to transform lives of Special Olympics, I would argue that the power is really in the athletes and their ability to transform our lives. And for those of you who have friends or family members, you can speak to that. So let's do the brief history lesson. Timberlawn, which is was the name of the residence where the Shrivers lived down in Rockville, really was the impetus for Special Olympics. Mrs. Shriver, again, there's a lot of history there, so I won't go into great detail, but she hosted, as early as 1962, camps in her backyard where she would bring individuals with, at the time the terminology would have been mental retardation, but intellectual disability, and individuals without disabilities to the backyard for effectively recreation camp opportunities. So the genesis really began in 1962. You heard in the video, the first international games, Soldier Field, Chicago, 1968. Now, I'm not sure how good this picture is, but everybody can understand Soldier Field football stadium, 70,000 seat venue, right? 1,000 athletes. There were less than 1,000 spectators in the stands at that first game. And Mrs. Shriver was extremely wise and shrewd and really a pioneer beyond anybody's comprehension. So this image today is testimony to effectively saying people did not care. Effectively. And see, she could have said, well, wait a second, we don't want to go to an empty venue. We want to provide a venue where athletes feel like they're being supported. And the way to do that would have been to go onto a smaller venue, even if there's 500 people at a small high school track, it would not have been as empty. And this photo doesn't do it justice, but trust me, the stadium was empty. So fast forward to 2003, Croke Park, Dublin, Ireland. Look at your quiz sheets. First time World Games were held outside of the United States. Up until that point, every World Games, international games have been in the United States. Croke Park is an 82,000 seat football, soccer stadium. They have concerts and so forth. It's packed. Every seat was taken. And seriously, if you dropped in, I sat in the stadium, and if you had dropped in and you didn't know where you were, you would have thought that you were at the opening ceremonies of an Olympic Games. You can see the pageantry in this. So, in a mere, from 68, my math isn't very good, from 68 to 2003, you go from an empty Soldier Field to a stadium filled in Dublin, Ireland. So not only growth, but growth internationally. Okay, now, at those opening ceremonies, dignitaries, Bono played, we had Nelson Mandela, and this is really a powerful statement. You, the athletes, you can read this, are the ambassadors of greatness of humankind. He goes on to say, your achievements remind us of the potential of greatness that resides in every one of us. So, that's how far we've come since 1962, backyard camps, 68 empty field in Soldier Field. Transforming lives to build better communities. But let's look at the reality. This poster says, retards, we all know one. Now, I was down at, we lobby at the federal level. We do a Capitol Hill Day, which we did 2 weeks ago. In fact, we have 2 athletes who you'll meet later on who were down there. And I saw Tim Schreiber during one of our meetings on the Hill with Steny Hoyer. And he pulled this image up and he said, where do you think I found this? I said, Tim, I have no idea. So he cut to the chase. He said, this poster was hanging in the faculty lounge at Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. Faculty lounge at one of the nation's premier children's hospitals. And actually a doctor went into the lounge and saw it and took a picture of it and sent it to him. The doctor actually had to happen to have an individual, a child with an intellectual disability. The point of sharing this with you is, notwithstanding the fact that how far we've come, we have a long way to go. Here's more evidence. I highly approve of Romney's decision to be kind and gentle to the retard. That's Ann Coulter tweeting after a presidential debate back in October. So how do we respond to that? The face and voice of Special Olympics are our athletes. I had an opportunity in my 3rd week to go see Erica Wheeler, who's a special Olympics athlete who lives up in Carroll County. She's a special Olympics athlete. She's on our board of directors. And just, I wanted to get a feel for what she was thinking, you know, where she thought the most important needs were. And so I was talking to her about going through the interview process, and I said, Erica, you know, one of the things I felt was very important is that I be out in the community, that I'm talking to the communities, attending meetings like this, making sure I have, you know, an understanding of what the needs are, finger on the pulse type piece. I said, you know, the way I articulated it to the board was, I need to be the face and the voice of Special Olympics Maryland. And Erica was quick to point out, she said, Jim, you know, that's really nice, but, and I don't mean to be rude, but I need to tell you that you're really not the face and voice of Special Olympics. I am. Erica was saying, Erica and all the other athletes are the face and voice. And she told me, she said, look, we need your support. You can be the voice and the face behind the athlete, but please make sure you understand that we are. And she's right. And so the best way for us to respond to issues like Ann Coulter's tweet, the best way for us to interact with folks like yourselves and others in the community is to work with our athletes and get our athletes involved. And so in a response, John Stevens, who's an athlete from Special Olympics Virginia, he sent an open letter. Come on, Ms. Coulter, you aren't done, and you can read the rest of it. And if you want to read his entire letter, you can find it on the specialolympics.org site. John became a celebrity of sorts. He was interviewed by CNN, he went on Piers Morgan. This was posted to the Special Olympics International site, introduced by Tim Schreiber, and it had the most hits to the Special Olympics website of anything that they'd ever posted. It had 250,000 hits within 24 hours. So again, the power of the athletes. One of the things that we've undertaken in conjunction with the communities that support individuals with intellectual disability is a campaign to spread the word, to end the word. Again, this is just something that seems very simple, but it raises the consciousness level of the nature of who our athletes are and the implications of respect for them. So that's just something that again is a contributing factor in terms of how we can transform lives and build better communities. So, just to wrap this up for you guys, I want to share a couple of stories. I mentioned earlier that in 1996 I went to the international office as the director of golf. It just so happened that it was a long evolution in terms of getting golf introduced as a sport in Special Olympics. In 1988, the PGA of America went to the international office and said, we'd like to help introduce golf to Special Olympics. And it was interesting, there was skepticism, which is surprising because here's one of those little factoids that's always helpful to try to keep in the continuum of history in Special Olympics. When they held the swimming competition at the pool in the first international games at Soldier Field, they actually had lifeguards in the pool at arm's length. So roughly, if you think about a 25-yard pool at the time, they had roughly 15 lifeguards in the pool because people were concerned that athletes weren't, especially individuals with Down syndrome, weren't buoyant enough and they were susceptible to drowning. Well, you know, again, it's ignorance. And so when the PGA came to the Special Olympics, there was skepticism in terms of whether or not our athletes could play golf. Well, are you kidding? It's really funny. But, so we did a clinic at the 1991 games out of Minneapolis and St. Paul. It was the highest attended clinics ever done. I mean, there were lines of athletes at these hitting stations that were being overseen by PGA of America members. So the sport evolves, and as part of the evolution, there was a golf committee that was put together, and Marty Sheets, a specialist athlete from North Carolina, was on the golf committee. Marty will go into the the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame a month from now in May as the first intellectual with intellectual disability, as the first individual with intellectual disability to go into that Sports Hall of Fame. But there's a more valuable story about Marty that will give you the essence of who Marty is and our athletes, and that is, he was on our golf committee by virtue of being an avid golfer, a really good player. He typically had scores in the mid to high 80s. But he wanted to improve, and he wasn't going to improve by hitting a longer off the tee. He was getting older like we all are. And so he was going to work on his short game, and so one of the gentlemen who was a PGA professional on our golf committee challenged Marty to make 100 3-foot putts in a row, and if he did it, he would give him $100. So we had these committee meetings. So that was a committee meeting in the spring. We came back to the committee meeting in the fall. Marty was there with his father, Dave, and they got up and said, we'd like to share a story with him. So Marty starts to say, yeah, Dad and I went out, we were putting, it was late, evening, afternoon, after work. Sun was setting, and I was going to make my 3 putts, 100 in a row. Got to 70, and Dave is sweating. He's like, man, this is awesome. Marty missed the 71st putt, and Dave was crushed. He's like, oh man, now the sun's setting, and it's like, we got to start all over, and we're not going to make it. And Marty looked at him and said, what's the matter, Dad? Let's go. So they put the balls down. Short version of this is he made the next 100 in a row. So he makes 170 out of 171 putts. Anybody play golf in here? Anybody ever make 100 putts in a row from 3 feet? It's not easy. As much as it just seems like a short distance. But anyway, so it's really cool. So everybody, I mean, you can imagine the emotion in that room, right? So Eric Wilson, the pro, goes into his billfold, pulls out a $100 bill, walks over to Marty, gives him a big old hug and says, man, this is the greatest $100 I've ever given to anybody, spent on anything in my life. Everybody stands up and cheers. Marty says, thank you. At the time now, I was working part-time as a golf director, so Marty walks over to me and says, here, I want to donate this to the Special Needs Golf Program. That's the power of our Special Needs athletes. They're always thinking about other people. Unbelievable, right? So I'm going to close with this one. So fast forward, I've been away from the organization now for 7 years. We're at our winter games, and I'm kind of, working my way around the first day. Our alpine ski director, the second day, we get there early, we're both walking up to the mountain. She says, it would really be, I think, a valuable experience for you if you escorted some athletes. She said, do you ski? I said, well, it's been, 11 years since I've skied. And she said, well, I think it'd be really good if you got with what we do is we stage athletes and we take them up the chairlift and we take them to the start gates, and so we need escorts to just keep them organized. She said, I think it'd be good if you were an escort. I said, that would be good, but I haven't skied in 10 years. So John and Jeff can attest to this. So I need to be safe, right? I don't need to go out and do something stupid and break a leg or something. So I get the shortest skis I can possibly get. Those guys will never let me live it down. I come out of the rental area and I tell John and Jeff what I'm doing. They're like, those skis are kind of short, aren't they, Jeff? I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to be safe. So anyway, I escort a novice group up, really cool, good guys, they ski. So then I get one more group to kind of finish out the day. These are advanced skiers, a group of 6 athletes. So I get them up to the advanced hill. I get to the starting gate, and the head of the volunteers there, really nice lady, she says, you gotta watch this. The starter is one of these athletes' mother. His name was Benjamin. So Benjamin gets up to the start line, and the race sequence goes, racer ready, and then they count down. So Ben gets up to the start line, and Trippy, who's overseeing this, the woman overseeing says, you gotta be serious, you gotta watch this. So the starter, the athlete's mother, Ben's mother says 5, 4. She gets to 3. Ben, as he always does when he starts the race, starts to push off at 3, and as he goes through the gates, he says, I love you, Mom. And his mother says, I love you. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, what sporting events do you go to where she was so locked in, racer ready, 5, 4, 3, I love you, Mom. I love you, Ben. And there he goes down the hill. Unbelievable. So those are my 2 stories. Just to reinforce the connection here to Maryland, 6,000 athletes, 1,000 coaches who volunteer, another 3,000 volunteer. We have 10,000 athlete experiences, and what that means is that that's not actual competitions, that's actual athletes participating in multiple sports. So we serve 6,000 athletes, but we have a large number who participate in 2 or more sports. The question is, what could it be, and what will it be? So we go back to the kind of the dream, the imagine. There are so many more athletes in this state that could be served by Special Olympics, and our job is to go make sure that they know what the opportunity is. I understand not everybody's going to participate in sports, but they should certainly know that the opportunity exists there for them. And we can do it, and we can do it together. So, to just close out, what will your story be? I've given you a couple of mine. What is your story, and what will they be? And for those of you who don't have a friend with an intellectual disability, who will that person be? When I come back next year, I don't expect to be the keynote speaker, but I will ask those questions. And I'll look forward to talking to you more and hear your stories over the course of the year so that we can continue to transform lives in a way that builds better communities. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. And thank you every day for what you do, not only for everybody in the community, but in particular for our athletes in Special Olympics Maryland. I am so excited to be here and look forward to working with you all to make Special Olympics Maryland the best that it can be. Let's have a great day.